Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to another Flutter tutorial. And in this video we are going to continue looking at Dart, and this time I'm actually going to use code to redemonstrate what I did in the previous video. So if you haven't watched the previous video, you can go ahead and then have a look at it. You will definitely find something useful over there, and after watching that, if you feel that didn't help you, then you can take a look at this video and see if that also solves some of the problem. I'm basically going to be repeating most of the things I did over there, but this time with code. Okay, so let's go on. So I am on the browser at dartpad.dev. Okay, this is their online code editor, and when you run it, this is what you have. Okay, I didn't type this there, these were already there. Now I'm going to turn on this feature which is called Null Safety. More on that later on along the line. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this. So this for statement, I'm going to remove everything. And for now, all that we have to do must be inside here. Okay, for now, all that we have to do must be inside this void main. Don't worry so much about this, but basically this is a function or method that is required to run whatever we do, okay, so that we're able to display whatever text that we have. So just make sure it's clear like this. So one of the first things we did in the previous video was to talk about variables and how to create variables and the types of variables, sorry, not variables, and the type of types that we have. Okay, so I'm going to start from there and simply create some variables. So we did say to create a variable, you need to specify the type, and the type is basically the label you place on your variable, whether your variable should hold only numbers or only alphabetic characters, or it should hold true or false, or it should hold only decimals. You have to specify a label, like having a container that you put only sugar inside. So sugar is the type that specifies what kind is put into that container. So for example, to create an integer variable that holds a value of let's say an age of 18, we have to say int. Let me get this out of the way, which stands for integer. The name of the variable will be age, and then we assign the value of what, 18 to it, and we have to end with what, our semicolon. Okay, so this would be giving you some warnings just in case something is going on. Okay, so right now we haven't used this age for anything, and that is why it is complaining. Okay, we have another type called double, and this takes floating point. So double temperature, so let's say temp is equal to 40.5 degrees, something like that. Okay, so these are the types that we have that are basically numbers. Now when we come to strings, the type there is called a string, and a string can be a name, so that's the name of this variable. And in Dart we can use single quotes and then say Dave, and make sure you end with your semicolon, or we can use double quotes and then we can have the same name in there. Okay, now moving on, we have booleans. So to declare a boolean type, we start with bool. Okay, the name you want to give to it, so let's say is happy, and then we assign a value of true. Remember, a boolean can take only true or false. It can't take one, it can't take two or anything, just the keywords true or false. And then finally, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to end at list. There are other data types, but we'll be looking at lists. So to create a list type, we start with a list. We give this list a name, so let's say scores, and then we assign a value to it. Now a list is defined using these square brackets. Okay, these square brackets denote that this course is a list, and then we can enter values like let's say 12, 40, so on. So we just have to separate them via commas. Okay, now one other thing I have to throw in here is that for a list of this type, this list just contains what? Integer values. So I could do something like this. I could say a list, and I'll use this angle brackets to specify what type of characters this list would hold. And so I can say int. Then this simply means that this new list I'm creating can only hold integer types, like 1, 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's say comma 4, comma that. Now the reason why sometimes you have to do this is that you could have a list, okay, for example, so another list of names, and this is going to be, so let's say we have Sam, and then let's say we have Dave, just like this. Now I could go in here, a comma, and then say 23. And this is possible with lists. Okay, you can mix up whatever you put in there. So that's the beauty of lists. It's just a special type of variable, like I explained in the other video, that can hold multiple values, not just one. Okay, so what if I want to say this list should only hold strings? Okay, then I can use this, which is called a generic, but for now don't worry about that. And then I'll specify a string in here, and now we should have a problem. Okay, we should have a problem with this code because we have 23 here. 23 isn't a string. Okay, 23 isn't a string, and so it is going to complain. You can already see we are having some issues here. Line 14 expected the type name. The name isn't a type, so can't be used. So you can see we are having an issue there. So I'm only going to remove this 23 like so, and now you can see that issue is gone because we said this list should only hold string types, and so it can only take this. So just like this, something like that. Okay, now we can go ahead and then simply print our statement. So if you want to display anything over here, we can use the print keyword, and inside here we can pass in our values we want to print. So we can print age. So I'm going to quickly copy this and then paste. So now that we have everything copied, we can simply go ahead and then print these out. So all I'm going to do is hit run, and sometimes this takes a little while to run. So once I print this out, you can see we have our age 18, we can see our double and Dave, and you can see our list of numbers here, the scores. You can see everything being printed out to this side. Okay, so that's basically it with variables that you would see us use a lot. So let me get rid of all of these. Now the next thing I want to talk about is logic branching or conditionals, like I explained, and we do that with using the if and else statement and or if else statement. So the way this works is like we did the other time. I am going to declare an integer variable of age equal to let's say 18, for example. Okay, and then down here I would say if, and I'll open a bracket. So I would say if age, and then to compare 2 equal to, so if age is equal to 18. So let's say we open our parentheses like this. So let's say we have a website that you have to be 18 years and above, okay, to access. So I should actually make this greater than or equal to. So if that is the case, what do we want to do? We want to print let's say access granted. That's what we want to print out to the user. Okay, so let's run this, and now you can see we have access granted, meaning that we check this condition. So if age, which is 18, is greater than or equal to 18, which is true, then we run this. So now let's see what happens if age here is 1, for example. Let's run this. We get nothing shows up. Okay, now the reason is that this condition was false, and so this doesn't run and it ends. That's it. But sometimes at least you need to have a second opinion, or should I say, if we want to display something else to the user. Me being this user, I don't know why I'm not getting any result. At least I should know something. So the way we do that is with the else statement. Okay, so with the else, we open our parentheses and then we can print something like let's say sorry, not qualified, something like that. Now if I run this, you notice that we get sorry, not qualified, and that is because the way the if statement works is that if this statement turns out to be true, then it does what is inside here. If this statement turns out to be false, then it does what is inside here. It will never do the 2. It's always 1. So we use this in so many ways in programming, where we want to check for something and then do the other thing depending on the outcome of this. So if statements are very, very useful. Okay, so the other dimension to this is, what if we have multiple options? Okay, we want to check for. So let me get rid of this part, even though I would have to type it again. Let's say there's a possibility that we want to look at certain classes of ages. Okay, so in that case, our age could be 18. Maybe if you are 25, we want to give you another message, and maybe if you are 30, we want to give you another message. Okay, so what we can do is, let's modify this a bit. So if age is, let's say 10, then we want to say let's say go to junior high school, for example. Okay, what if the age is 20 or 18? What do we want to say? Or 15? We can't put that in the else part, because what about the remaining 30, 45? How do we check that? So the way we do that is we bring in else. So we do that with else and then if again, and then we have our condition. So we can check if age is so let me make this change here. So let me make this equal to. So if age is equal to, let's say 25, then we probably want to print something like let's say go to the uni, for example. And then what if age is 30 or 40 or 60? What do you want to do? Well, we can go ahead and then type the same else if. Okay, and then we can say if age is equal to let's say 60, then let's say, let me actually make this a little value, let's say 40. Then we can have a print statement. So I forgot to close that. Let me copy this and paste this here, and then let's say go home, for example, for lack of a better thing. And then finally we can just type an else without what, the if statement, and then here we can say maybe something like invalid value also, for example. Okay, now the way this works is that, let's make our age 25. Okay, and let's run this. So you see we get go to the uni. This is because it first checks, is age equal to 10? Well, age is 25, so this condition is false. It skips it and checks here, is age equal to 25? Yeah, it's 25. So it prints out the statement and that's all. there's no way if one of these is true, it will still go and print the next one. This last part only runs if what? None of these conditions have been met. So for example, let me make this value 1 and then run. Notice how we get invalid value, and the reason is it checked, is this 1? Nope. Is this 10? So 1 is not equal to 10, 1 is not equal to 25, 1 is not equal to 40, and so it just tells you, well, this is the last thing that is left. And so yeah, so this is how you can check for multiple things using an if statement. Okay, and then finally we are going to look at loops and how loops work. I'm going to start with a while loop. So the way the while loop works is that, let's say we have an integer called counter, and this is 0. Okay, and then we would say while, and into bracket we specify a condition. So let's say while our counter is less than maybe 5, then we want to print hello to the user, like so. So basically what we are trying to do is we are simply saying that our counter is 0 for now. So as long as our counter is 0, okay, and it is less than 5, we want to print this statement. But I'm not going to run this because there's one thing missing, and without it we are going to create an infinite loop, because counter is 0. So is 0 less than 5? Yes, it will print hello. It will come back and check, is counter still less than 5? Well, counter is still 0, so it will print. So it will always be 0, and it will keep running this forever. Now you don't want to do that, so I'm not. The final part to the while statement is your increment or decremental, depending on what you are doing. So the way we do that is we use our variable counter again, and then we say plus plus, and this is the same as saying counter is equal to counter plus 1. Okay, this is the same thing. This is just the shorthand version. So whatever value counter is, add 1 to it and assign it back. That's just all this is saying. So counter is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, and then we put 1 back inside counter, making it 1. Okay, that's just the logic, but I'll get rid of this. And now when we run this, we should get hello printed what? 5 times, because counter starts at 0, 0 is less than 5. We print hello 1 time, and then we increment by what? 1. So now when I run this, we should get this running 5 times. So you can see we have hello 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because we start at 0 and then we loop this throughout till this condition is no more true. So this works 5 times. If I want this to be printed 100 times, then it's as simple as changing this to 100 and then running this, and then you can see we get 100 of them. So loops are very convenient if you want to repeat something multiple times. Okay, very, very convenient. And that is the while loop for you. Now the second type of loop we are going to look at is the do while loop. I was going to say for loop, but I want to reserve that for the last. So the do while loop syntax looks like this. So do, and then over here we say while, and then we put in our condition. So do here is where we put in our code. So here we can say print, and then let's say hello again. This tutorial will be full of printing hellos. And then we can say counter less than 5. Okay, and this basically does the same thing we did earlier. So let me run this. So before I actually run this, if I run this, I'm going to end up crashing my browser because counter is always going to be 0, and again an infinite loop. So this is where we put in our incremental. So we would say counter plus plus, like so, and then I can go ahead and run this now. and you see we get the same result. So what is the difference between the do while and then the while loop? Well, what happens is that the while loop checks the condition before running. The do while runs before checking the condition. And so you are guaranteed to have at least your code run once when you use the do while loop. And this is useful for things like maybe a number guessing game. Okay, you want the user to guess a number and then you check whether the number is right. But what do? You need to first display the question to the user, please guess a number. You don't want to check the guessed number because the user hasn't even guessed yet. So at least you want to first display the guessed question, and then you check whether the user has guessed it right. If the user has guessed it right, then that's it, the game ends. But if the user fails, then we go back and we do the same thing till the user gets the right answer. So the do while loop, your code runs at least once. So for example, let me make this condition false. Let me make 10 here. So int is 10. 10 is not less than 5, so the condition is false, right? But watch this. You notice how we get one hello. This is because it goes in here, it prints hello, and then increments counter by 1, and then comes to check, making counter even 11. So 11 is not less than 5, and so the program ends. But at least we printed out hello just once. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then finally, we move on to the for loop, which you saw me use in the Tipeee app calculation. Sorry, in the Tipeee tip calculator. Man, I'm doing this late at night and I'm a bit sleepy. So the final one is the for loop, and the syntax goes like this: for an integer I, which is given a value of 0, semicolon, the same I, for as long as it's less than a certain value, let's say 5, we want to increment I by 1, which is plus plus. Now this is, should I say, we'll do the same thing as a while loop. Check the condition before running. But why would you want to use this over the while loop? Well, this is compact, as it allows you to create your variable within the brackets. You don't need your variable outside. Everything is done here. So your variable is created, the condition is checked, and the incremental is done here. Everything in one place. So I can go ahead and then do the same thing. Print hello. So I'm fond of using single quotes. And then if I run this, we should get the same answer. So we get 5 hellos as usual. So how does this work? Well, when this starts, it creates a variable called I and stores 0 inside it. It gets to the condition part. I is 0, right? So is 0 less than 5? True, 0 is less than 5. So it jumps into this body and then prints the first hello. Then it comes out and back to the parenthesis and increments I by 1. So I is now at 1. So is 1 less than 5? True. So it prints hello again. That's the second hello right here. And it goes back to this increments I by 1 again, making it 2. Is 2 less than 5? True. So it goes inside here, prints the third one, comes back here, increment by 1, making 3. Is 3 less than 5? True. It comes inside here, it does that till I is 5. Is 5 less than 5? No. The condition is false, then it exits from the condition. Okay. So these are a few core concepts I want us to cover here. And before I finally leave, I forgot to touch on something about lists, which is very important for you to understand with what I did with the Tipeee calculator. So let me just touch on that, and then we can call it a night or a day, depending on the time you are watching it. Now let's create a list of some scores, and then let's assign some scores to this. So square bracket, and then let's say this. Oops, that's too much. And then last one. Let's end this. All right. Now we've seen a list, and we know that if we just go ahead and then print, and then we put in our list's name, so scores, and then we run this, we get the entire list printed. But how would I print out just one item? Okay, how would I print out a specific item at a specific spot? Now, the way a list works is that it uses something called indexing, okay, index positions. And usually a computer counts from 0, not 1. So if I asked you how many things are here, you would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You are right. To the computer, in terms of indexing, this is position 0 or index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in terms of indexing, the index of a list is always going to be one less the number of elements. So if we have 5 elements, the total index positions will be what? 4. If you have 10 elements, the total index positions will be what? 9. Okay, and it's through the index positions that we are able to access specific values. For example, if I wanted to print out 54, okay, the way I can do that is, this is position 0, this is position 1. So after my scores list, I would open a square bracket and specify the index of the value I want to print. So 54 is what? 1. Okay, and now let's run this, and you notice I get 54. Okay, if I wanted a last value, I simply have to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here I'll pass in 4 and then run this. We get 89. What happens if you enter an index value that isn't there? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say you thought this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so you wanted 89, so you said 5. You are going to get this error, range error, okay, index out of range. This is because we are saying that we want to access the element at the position 5. Well, computer says this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's the 5th item? I have nothing there, so it doesn't know what to do. Okay, so this is really something you need to watch out when you are dealing with lists, okay, with these square brackets. So if you see this in the TP app calculator, you would notice that it was used because it was a list that we're working with, the list of bools. Okay, so that is one thing I wanted to touch on. Now, list has so many functions to it. So if I wanted to find out the total number of items in here, I could say scores and use the dot operator and then call something called length. Did I spell that right? So like so. And now when I print this or run this, you notice it says 5 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there are so many list functions. I'm not going to go through any of them. This is just what I am mentioning for now, because I'm going to use it to show you how we can print out all these items if we wanted to, because we don't want to say print scores square bracket then 0, print scores square bracket, then you don't want to repeat all of that. So the way we can do that is making use of the for loop. Okay, very handy. So let's do this. So for, so we can say int. Remember, we need, the convention is just I. You can call it anything. In fact, for this example, I'll call it score and I'll assign it 0. Okay, then I'll say, so for as long as our score, okay, so the variable is less than our scores dot length, and I'll explain why we are using length very soon. Then we want to increment our score plus plus. Let me see if I can make some space. Yeah, so we saw the other time we used I. We can use score and it would work. Okay, that's not a problem. Now I feel like I should change this back to I because we have scores and I'm using score. Okay, so let me make that I. and let me make that I, and let me make this I. Okay, so this is the usual convention you see. So we create our integer value of I, variable of I, we assign it 0, and then we are saying that for as long as I is less than scores.length. Remember what scores.length does? It returns the total length of our list. So this is basically the same as saying as long as scores is less than 5. Okay, because the total length of things is what? 5. The reason why we don't hard code 5 is that what if I come here and I add maybe another score here? Do I have to always come back and also update this to 6? No. Okay, so we normally use the length property with the list. So let me send this back to our scores dot length property. This would take care of our list total number. Even if we added 100 things, it will still take care of that, so it doesn't really matter. You don't have to come and update it. So if I add 20 more things, well, it is getting us the length of everything, so 25. So let's go in here, and then we can simply say that we want to print scores, so the name of our list, square bracket, and then I. This is what we want to do. Now let me explain this before we actually run this. In fact, let me run it. You notice we get all our values, and the way this works is that, so just like I explained, we create our variable called I, we give it 0. So is 0 less than scores.length? What is scores.length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 is 0 less than 5 is true. So it comes in here to print scores at position I. Position I is what? 0. So the first item, right? Remember indexing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you saw how we could access individual items using this method. So if I say 0 here, I am printing the first item. But because we are doing this dynamically, we don't want to type in the actual value. We are using the value of I. So I starts at 0, so this is 0, so the first value. Now we go and increment I by 1. So it's 1 less than the scores.length, which is 5, and it's true. We come here and we print scores I. Now what is I now? 1. So we move to this value and we print it out. We increment I by 1, making it 2. 2 is still less than 5. I is what? 2. So we print this value. We keep doing that till what? This condition is no more true. And then the code ends and we would have printed out all our values. Okay. So guys, this has been a quick one so that you can further understand what we are doing when we are finishing up our TP tip calculator. Okay, so I'm hoping at least I have clarified a few things. If this is your first time, if you are familiar with languages like Java, JavaScript, this shouldn't be any problem for you. Okay, but if this is your first time, if there's any problem, just hit me up in the comments and I'll be very happy to help you out. So guys, as usual, this has been Happy Cat, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share it.